Before I begin, I'd like to show you all a video. Yep, that's me. And you're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation. But let's back it up a bit. For the longest time, I've had a fear of heights. Magical hot air balloon rides and breathtaking mountain lookouts only served to test my nerves. So when my parents signed me up last minute for a guided mountain climbing experience on our trip to Canada, I was less than thrilled. I had just spent the morning clinging to the railing of a skywalk, and the thought of dangling off a rock face made my stomach crawl. Yet that sunny July morning, I showed up at the base of Mount Norquay. This is probably a good time to introduce you to the type of mountain climbing I was doing. It's called Via Ferrata. A combination of rock climbing and hiking, it involves a climbing route equipped with steel cables, ladders, and railings to minimize risk. But no amount of protective equipment could save me from what I feared the most: heights. Now, my initial vision of Via Ferrata was pretty far off from reality. I imagined a rock climbing wall with cables, less than 100 feet off the ground. But the moment I walked into the Via Ferrata office, I knew my impressions were dead wrong. The images on the wall depicted climbers hanging off of mountains, the ground thousands of feet below. My plight had only just begun, though. I was herded onto an open-air lift, then timidly followed my group up a trail that disappeared into the mountains. As the ground receded and the trail narrowed, panic hit me. I clung to rocks and froze, but there was no turning back now. I clipped my first cable and started to climb. I focused on each movement, each breath, each handhold. And slowly but surely, my heart rate steadied. I settled into the rhythm of climbing, and the sharp edges of my fear softened with each step. There I was, dangling on a massive cliff face, looking out at the forest below me. Yet the waves of fear that pounded me mere minutes ago had seemingly dispersed into thin air. I had never felt so alive, and possibly so close to imminent death. But there's a beauty in being present, in the peace found amidst adrenaline. After hours of climbing, we returned down the same trail we had ascended. But this time I walked with a newfound confidence and ease. I had overcome more than just a mountain. I had conquered my fear. Now, I'm sure everyone here is familiar with fear. It's one of the most basic human emotions we all experience. It's the instant recoil when you see a spider, the unease in facing new situations, and that knot in your stomach when speaking in front of an audience. Believe me, I know. But what exactly is this emotion, and how is it triggered? Well, everything starts in the amygdala, an almond-shaped part of our brain associated with emotions. When a potential threat is detected, the amygdala signals the hypothalamus, which triggers the fight or flight response. This leads to physical changes in the body: increased heart rate, rapid breathing, and adrenaline release. At its core, fear is a primal instinct that has been crucial to our survival for millions of years, helping us avoid danger and succeed as a species. But today, we respond with fear more often to mundane events than to real threats, which often keeps us from achieving our goals. Fear never magically disappears. You won't wake up one day and become fearless. Instead, you need to change your relationship with fear. And today, I'd like to share some strategies that have worked for me, and I hope will help you as well. First, you have to accept its presence. Denying or suppressing fear only amplifies it. For me, my mountain climbing experience shifted when I clipped my first cables and started to climb. The higher I went, the more I realized there was no turning back. I stopped resisting and started embracing my fear. Second, change your perspective. Instead of viewing fear as a barrier, see it as an opportunity for growth. When I was on that mountain, thousands of feet above the ground, I started to see each step as a challenge rather than a threat. This shift in mindset can transform fear from a paralyzing force into a motivating one. Now, I've saved the best strategy for last because there is one tried and true method I've been using to deal with fear since I was little. I use this every time I'm faced with a stressful situation. I cry. Now, I know this doesn't sound very glamorous, but there is scientific evidence that crying can help you feel better. Tears contain toxins such as stress hormones, so they literally help us flush these chemicals out of our bodies. Additionally, crying can also trigger the release of endorphins, our body's natural painkillers. So crying is not merely an emotional response. Rather, it's an overlooked and surprisingly effective tool. On that fateful day in Canada, these 3 strategies helped me turn a potentially miserable day into an adventurous and transformative one. In the end, I realized something important. Fear is often a barrier to some of our greatest experiences. But when you confront it, instead of running away, you don't just survive, you thrive. You learn new things about yourself and discover that you're capable of much more than you ever imagined. That's what I did by climbing my first Via Ferrata in the Canadian Rockies. And that's what I'm doing right now by speaking to you. So whether it's heights, public speaking, or something else that scares you, remember that it's not about eliminating fear, but redefining your relationship with it. Fear is not a roadblock or an enemy. Rather, it's a tool that guides you towards your next breakthrough. Embrace the challenge and take the leap, and I know you'll find a new horizon of possibilities waiting for you on the other side. Thank you.